1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
All right, Racing for Heroes fans, we're back again. It's April 2nd. We're here on WVOX 1460 on AM dial up in New York. We're streaming live on WVOX.com. It is really cold up here. In fact, I broke up my Whoopee hoodie straight from Cracking Skulls, threw some patches on there, so feeling pretty motivated today. But our first guest should need no introduction, but it is Adam Benaway, two-time SCCA Autocross champ, one-time SCCA time trial champion, has won multiple champ car races, as well as is now in the world of legends. And he is a legend indeed, still on active duty as a sergeant first class in the U.S. Army in psychological warfare. So without further ado, Adam Benaway, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning, Brett. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was expecting you to like my April Fool's joke yesterday saying that there was transparent anti-Cs out there. I thought I would catch somebody, but you were pretty smart, I guess.
I have not been attacked by the anti-Cs monster.
Oh, it is a scourge. It is a scourge. In fact, there's a dot on my couch that my wife points out that came from, I think, my thumb. Had a little bit of anti-Cs on it, and it is just absolutely impossible to get off. So anyway, but well, listen, Adam, thanks for being on here today. I thought today we would talk about a few things before we have our second guest, Jon Krolewicz from SCCA. So first, though, why don't you tell the guests, what you're doing now, what's going on with the Legends Racing?
So I feel like pretty well established in the autocross, and I guess proven in a way. I kind of wanted to move to something new and challenging. And since I live 5 miles from the dirt track, I picked up a dirt track car, which falls under it's an INEX, stands for Inexpensive Legends Car, and they're basically spec dirt track cars. But what's cool about those cars is they're cross compatible with road racing, autocross, asphalt oval. So that's why I chose that platform. But it's definitely a challenge. It's been a steep learning curve. I got about a dozen races in, and the competition in the Carolinas are great. You've spoke with some of the competitors, Willie Ridenhour, and in the North Carolina region is just saturated with good talent. So it's humbling to come into a class that's as competitive as it is. And if you want to be the best, you kind of got to beat the best. So
yeah, for sure.
What a great series to fall into.
Well, like you said, Willie was on not too long ago with 316 Motorsports, and he was talking about how those cars are built, and it sounds like there's really like a motorcycle engine really in there, and there's a choice between having a water-cooled engine and air-cooled engine. Where are you on that?
So the engine that's been ran the most in the tenure of the Legends is the 1250 cc Yamaha air-cooled motorcycle engine. INEX has kind of evolved into the liquid-cooled, more modern engine, and I think within the next couple of years, that's going to be the main go-to engine. A lot of teams are moving up to that air-cooled engine just for longevity, durability, and drivability purposes. You can get into these cars well under $10,000 ready to run. And the 1250s are still competitive. They win every weekend across the country, and even at some of the big races. But just with modern technology, the fuel-injected, liquid-cooled motors are basically the future of that class.
Sure. And both are obviously allowed on the track, so they're competing against each other every day, to your point. So no, that's cool. And I'm assuming you're running the 1250 Yamaha though, right?
I'm running the 1250. It's basically the small block Chevy of the bigger engine.
Sure.
It's dead reliable.
Yeah.
Has all the power you need. But they're kind of getting old and dated. And I think INEX developed this new engine to be competitive, not an overdog.
Sure.
So they're definitely not an overdog, but I think INEX is moving towards wanting the FC09s in most cars.
Gotcha. And so let's do a quick switch here. So you're still involved, obviously, with SCCA, in particular, CCR chapter down in Carolina region. What are you doing with SCCA nowadays?
So I'm still going to try and hit some events. I'm actually going to prep the Legends car to run autocross. It falls into a class. And that was one of my reasons for getting that car. There's also the Track Night in America events that go on that I still like to participate in. They're starting a new endurance series, kind of like Champ Car, that we as an RFH and the team could potentially run in. And since we got an outstanding relationship with SCCA, I think that would be awesome to get some of our cars over there. But it's really opportunity driven with the dirt track schedule. Almost every other weekend we have a race.
Yeah.
The SCCA hasn't been on my forefront, but it's definitely not gone away. I still have the desire to go on autocross, and you can't beat the competition even at local autocross levels.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, because I didn't even realize that the Legends were doing that now. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. So they're not really stacked in a very competitive class in autocross, but I'm just a thrill seeker, and I want to go autocross a Legends car. But they also have classes for road racing and wheel-to-wheel racing. So I can essentially take a Legends car and go race in almost any event I've done in the past.
So, yeah, because actually I was down in Fayetteville, I guess a few weeks ago now, although I'll be back down again next week. You were actually racing in the enduro race that they sponsor there, 200 laps.
Oh yeah, that was fun. So we had a really good car with Redline Auto here in Fayetteville, and we were leading or on the lead lap after the first 100 laps. And then because the amount of mud that gets kicked up in the radiator and just the wear and tear on the transmissions, and most of these cars are just like off the street junk cars.
Right.
We just overworked the transmission, upshifting, downshifting, and the car overheated in the second segment. But a 200 lap enduro and a street car on a wet down track is probably one of the most fun I've had ever. And they're going to do another one here in a couple months, but it's going to be less oval track and more left, right, almost like a motocross track.
Oh, at Fayetteville?
No, they're moving it down to an ATV park in Bennettsville, South Carolina. It's about an hour away from Fayetteville.
Oh, very cool.
But Dad at Kraken Skulls, he came to me when he was setting it up. He's like, "You're gonna like this one. It's not just an oval. It's like almost like a miniature road course."
Well, listen, Chad is the man. So I said, I'm wearing my Whoopie hoodie right now. In fact, I was only able to get the Army camouflage one, so I feel a little dirty wearing Army camouflage. But hey, listen, you get what you can. But what did you think of?
Family?
Yeah, well, listen, I serve some joint tours, and a lot of my friends, as you know, are Army. What did you think about the Bristol race the other day in the dirt? Was just a big joke or something cool, or what do you think?
So I watched all the other classes, your typical dirt track classes, lead up to the NASCAR race, and that was really exciting. Probably watched it more than I should have at work, but but I like the diversity NASCAR has brought to the courses this year. They're doing that. They're doing more road courses. They switched up the Daytona infield course and, of course, the Charlotte Roval. So I genuinely like that. And I'm actually looking forward to a new series that some NASCAR guys are doing called the SRX, which is a spec car ran on dirt oval, asphalt oval, and road course. And in my mind, it kind of mimics the INEX Legends series, just bigger cars.
Yeah, because I'm assuming they're
like Tony Stewart, Ray Evernham, and a bunch of names in the industry. It's going to be a spec car driver class where the driver draws a number and gets a car and a crew chief. That's how they get points throughout the season. So it's really cool.
Oh, so it just switches up every week anyway. So it really does show you who the better driver is.
Right.
That's amazing. And, when can we expect to see that come out?
I know they're testing right now, and actually one of our potential guests, Barry Bodine, he is working on that development crew. So,
very cool.
So yeah, that's something to be excited about.
Is he any relation to Jeff Bodine, or?
He is. That's the Bodine family. He actually got me kind of started in autocross.
Oh, wow.
He took me under his wing and got me racing, and so we've carried on a relationship since then.
Well, that is racing royalty, as you know. I mean, that's about as much as racing royalty as you can get, for sure.
Yeah, really good family.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's great. And so, what's next though for you? Where are you going next?
John is on.
Legends series has kind of kicked off here. There's some internal, I guess, series, SRI Cup. They got a multiple race series. So we did a Fayetteville race about a month ago, and then we go down to Lakeview, South Carolina, and then out to Charlotte to the East Lincoln Speedway out by Charlotte.
Oh, cool.
And so that's like a smaller point series within a bigger race, but I really want to get a good win, a big win in a Legends car, and it's going to take time. But I got a lot of support with Racing for Heroes, Crack and Skull, Redline.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm hoping to get down to Lakeview soon myself, so hopefully we'll have a chance to see that. All right. Well, before we go to our next guest, though, I did ask you earlier today if you'd share some good driving tips for regular drivers out there. I had a chance to be with you. I think it was an M7 or an M5. M4. It was amazing, and your ability as a driver, I think, was really shown that day on that car. But besides really cool lighting effects to make you go faster, which would have been great if this was an April 1st show. But any good tips that someone besides like not texting or something like that?
I'm a huge fan of be situationally aware. Use all your mirrors. Anticipate other people. So, real quick example: if you're in the left lane of a 3-lane road, and there's a center lane open, and you're going to that, be cognizant of the car on the far right, because they may be getting in that same lane. And I think that's a big thing. Is people literally just drive out of their front windshield, and your head should be on a swivel. For aspiring performance drivers, I always resort back to the 3 and 9 hand position. You see a lot of people with their hands up at 11 and 1 or 10 and 2. 9 and 3 gets you the most range for your hands, and where you don't have to take your hands off the wheel. So those are my 2 tips.
No, and I appreciate that, because I when I was growing up, I was always taught 10 and 2. I actually went to a combat driving course once that taught us to put our hands lower, not at the 3 and 9, but below that, and it was because the airbag going off.
The airbag, correct. Now that's in a defensive, kind of more tactical situation, but that's what I'm saying. If you're aspiring to be a performance driver, there's different techniques, but you get better control with 3 and 9. And
as you know, I have a 16-year-old or almost 16-year-old and a 13-year-old who thinks he knows how to drive at home already. So, we always look for tips to pass out to them as they're kind of going through.
Especially with you up there in the New York, New Jersey area and all that big traffic, head on a swivel, constantly checking your mirrors, because that dude who's doing 15 over won't be there, and then he'll be in your blind spot.
Yeah, for sure.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, driving up here is different. That is for sure. But
and I'd like to add real quick, the guest you're coming on, he was kind of a mentor, very good role model when I was coming up through autocross, and I'm sure he has some stories. He drove my car, whooped my tail, and I learned from it. It was my first year in autocross.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, don't worry about it. I've been doing this for years. Where may you be in 10 years? And then almost to the date, 10 years later, I won a national championship.
There you go. Well, in fact, John's actually on the line already, so I'm sure he heard that. So, Adam, thank you very much, and I'll do the rest of the introduction for Jon Krolewicz, who is the Sports Car Club of America, SCCA Senior Manager of Track and Time Trials, which means he really sets up all the regional events for enthusiasts all over the place, things like Track Night in America or the Tire Rack Time Trials National Tour. And per his biography, he's raced everything from little 5-horsepower go-karts all the way to prototypes at the 24 Hours of Daytona, and kind of stops in between Formula, stock cars, sports cars, time attack cars, and more. So that is quite the biography, Jon. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here this morning.
Well, we're excited to have you, because listen, Adam Benaway, I think, put you on a pedestal, and it's very clear to me that, he thinks you're a great driver. So that makes you a great driver in my mind, too. So thanks for being on the show. We're just super happy.
Very, very welcome. And, if Adam says it, who am I to argue with it?
Absolutely. Right. That is, but he is PSYOP, so he may be actually doing it to trick you for the next race and make you overconfident.
I remember asking the PSYOPs guys, what do you do? They say stuff. I'm like, what kind of stuff? And they're like, stuff. Everybody wants to brag about what they do except them. So
that's right. You're
probably right on that too.
Right. Deep down. So I'm sure Adam's going to call me later and be like, man, you told him you shouldn't have done that. So let me ask this. What does the manager of track and time or senior manager of track and time trials do? Like, how does that kind of work?
So what it means is it is my job and goal, and at this point, life passion, I think, to enable people to get on to racetracks as amateurs. Not necessarily having to be a pro, or not necessarily needing to to have aspirations to drive the Indy 500 one day.
Sure.
But we kind of call it recreational driving and recreational competition.
Mm-hmm.
If you see, recreational foot races that they may have all the time, that maybe you get caught traffic on or have to go around or something like that. It's very much like that, except instead of for, the running crowd, it's for the car enthusiast crowd.
Yeah. And, and Adam brought up a good point, like driving up here in New York is terrible. But, you do have people that have high performance automobiles, but they're not ever able to really drive them in the way that they're truly designed. I mean, they're very much restrained, which is why I think that things like SCCA gives people that outlet to use that car that they have, that they may use every day, in the way it was designed to be run.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about being in New York, I actually love driving on the road in New York, and especially the city, but I'm a little nuts. The great thing about being there is that the track density in the area is pretty good.
Yeah.
You've got Palmer up in Massachusetts, you've got Lime Rock,
Yep.
You've got Thompson, you have, Pocono's not that far, and New Jersey Motorsports Park isn't that far. So lots of opportunities for that recreational style of driving on a track.
Yeah, I think that that's the way to go. I mean, and as Adam will attest, I took my 4Runner out on VIR. I went 1.5 laps, and that was enough for me, and I got off. So I had the wrong car for it. It was so bad. It was so bad, John. I ended up blocking this poor Lamborghini that was stuck behind my stupid 4Runner, and I just felt so bad that I was like messing his run up. So I just got off the track.
Humility is an excellent skill that I am constantly trying to have, and I'm sure that it was the Lamborghini driver came away better for that.
Well, like I said, I just put my blinkers on and got over so he could pass me. Although I do have a nice video that someone took of me holding off on a Lamborghini and a Porsche with my 4Runner, but it was just more because I took up so much of the track. But so let's talk about some of your racing history. So did you start off as like a little kid driving 5 horsepower go-karts? Is that where you started?
I mean, it depends what you call a kid. I didn't actually go racing until I was, I think, 15 or 16.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'd been going to races. The Indy 500. My first trip was in 1985.
Oh, very cool.
My dad is a writer. He was going to races as credential media, and then I was finding places at NASCAR tracks to sneak under the gate and to get into garage areas. And so the people that I saw around motorsports were AJ Foyt and Richard Petty and Cale Yarbrough, and there was always this larger than life.
Al Unser Jr., and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at one point I went, wait a minute, there are also other people in this sport. What's to stop me from actually trying to do this?
Yeah.
And so I worked for about a year to save up money for a helmet and a go-kart, a trailer, and a trailer hitch to put on my dad's, sedan. And we, I started going racing. And from there, it's led to all kinds of fun and opportunities. And it's been pretty amazing.
Well, I was talking with the morning show folks when we were talking about today's show, and they were actually asking about the 24 Hours of Daytona, like what that's really like. And I kind of said it was sort of like Paul Newman, Steve McQueen kind of racing was the way I kind of described it in a layman's way.
I actually, when I drove the 24, I actually had contact with Paul Newman in the middle of a corner and had to go apologize to him. Or I did, and he was like, I didn't even notice. Paul, the race car driver, was an amazing person, and I miss him, but it was fun being out there with him.
Yeah, well, it's not many people that can say they crashed into Paul Newman, so like or had contact. Excuse me, I don't want to overstate it.
It was a small bump. We were being held up by, I think, a 4Runner.
Oh yeah, well, that does it every time. It is a tactic of using a 4Runner with mud tires on a track to mess everyone up. But what type of cars are those? Those were prototypes, though, right? Like they.
So, I ran in, at the time they had, a couple of different prototype classes and a couple of GT classes. And I was running in P1. I was lucky enough to be in the top class, French built car called a Norma. And so, top speed somewhere in the mid 190s up on the banking. And then, lap times about 6 or 7 seconds a lap faster than the GT cars at that point.
Oh, wow. And those are all like bespoke, right? I mean, like little elves and gnomes are like using a spinning wheel to spin them out. And it's like they're super unique, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, there were a couple of teams, there were a couple of manufacturers building cars that they would sell to customers, but we had a couple of team cars. One had a BMW V8 in it, the other had a Ford V8 in it. But you might have seen, there was a Lola, and I forget what their motor was. They actually won the race that year. But you had Riley and Scott. You had a few different manufacturers building for that.
And Lola does IndyCar at one point, right? I'm not sure if they still do.
For years, Lola, they don't do IndyCar now because IndyCar is a spec chassis. But in the 80s and especially early and mid 90s, Lola dominated the IndyCar series, but also made all the way down to junior Formula Car series, like Formula Fords and stuff like that. So Lola was a race car constructor that built across the whole landscape of motorsports. Oh
wow, that's great. And then you did some Formula Car racing too. Was that at the F1 level or somewhere in between?
No, I mean more coming up through the ranks of SCCA. I heard Adam talking about the Legends cars in the different classes. SCCA in a road racing sense, they have the like touring cars, but then they also have Formula cars and sports racers. Okay. And the entry level are like Formula V, which is like an old Volkswagen Beetle motor, and then there's Formula Ford with what had a 1.6 liter Ford motor. It's called Formula F, and they have a Ford motor or a Honda motor. There's Formula 2000. There's Formula Atlantic. There's a bunch of different levels. That of course increase with speed and complexity and horsepower as you go up, and really that's where the training ground for a lot of the Formula One guys are. I mean, if you go came from. So if you go look at the Formula One guys, they start in karts and they come to Formula Ford and then Formula 3, Formula 2, and Formula One.
Gotcha. So we're getting kind of the very end of the show, John. If someone does want to join SCCA and be involved, where should they go?
If someone does want to or doesn't want to?
They do, if they do want to.
We do. Okay, excellent. So SCCA.com is really the best place there, and there's opportunities to learn about the different programs. There's opportunities to join the club, and there's anything you want there, whatever level you're looking at participating at an automobile. Whether you say like I just want to go drive my Honda Civic in New Jersey Motorsports Park because it's an hour and a half away. Or if you say, I think I want to go be a champion, I want to win the runoffs, which is our national championship for road racing. We've got everything from non-competition all the way up to competition. And I just say explore that site and go from there.
That's awesome. And it's all regional too, right? So like the clubs are somewhat regionalized to a degree at the local level, I guess.
Yeah, the clubs, there's 115 what we call regions across the country.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, the regions are grouped into divisions. And then, of course, there's national. And so there's regional events, there's divisional level events, there's national level events that you can participate in.
All right. And John, last question, same kind of one I asked Adam. What recommendations do you have for like a regular driver out there, especially since you like driving up here in New York?
So I'll definitely second Adam's, awareness, but I think the thing that applies both on a track and on the street is looking ahead. And the farther you can get your eyes up, the more you see what's coming at you and what you have to deal with, not just 5 seconds from now, but 10 seconds or 30 seconds from now. the better you're going to do, the better you're going to really just be aware of what's going on around you.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny you said, because I had that conversation with my kids the other day. We were on the Hutchinson River Parkway, which, you know, can be like a racetrack at 70, but go to 15 miles per hour in a heartbeat. And I'm always telling them, like, you know, hey, listen, you know, what you're doing is you're looking up the road, as opposed to kind of like where you're going to be in 2 feet, you know, and kind of thinking through that, and, you know, trying to get them to think in that way, I think is hard, or like scanning dials, mirrors out the window, like getting that down to be so second nature that you don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. When I teach, I describe it like being on a bicycle. And if you look down, it looks like you're going fast, but all you're seeing is the ground and all you're seeing is what's there. But if you look up and look around, it minimizes that, you know, those things that surprise you, that effect of speed. And so that's how I like to train it is look up, look ahead, get a better awareness of where you are and what is actually coming at you.
Yeah, for sure. And Jon, that is actually the end of our show. So listen, I want to thank you. I want to thank SCCA and you know, all the stuff you do. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person here someday.
I'm looking forward to it. Maybe we'll get you riding something a little bit faster than a 4Runner around VIR.
For sure. All right, Race Fears fans, that is the end of our show here on WVOX 1460 AM, streaming worldwide, WVOX. And of course, check out this show later on our YouTube channel. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.